No way in God's heaven I should get into God's heaven. But maybe he'll let me in if I warn others the apocalypse is coming.
What if The Simpsons didn't just predict random events, but accidentally mapped out where the world is heading? Because right now, it's not one thing coming true, it's everything at once. Smart homes that watch you. AI quietly replacing people.
These are robots. You will train them, and they will replace you.
Fake reality spreading faster than truth, and a world growing more tense by the day. And when you step back and connect it all, it stops feeling like coincidence and starts feeling like a build-up to something the show already saw coming. World War III. Number 14. Smart homes becoming predators. The Simpsons gave one of its darkest tech warnings in House of Wax, from Treehouse of Horror 12, Season 13, Episode 1. Marge lets a shiny salesman turn the old Simpson house into the Ultra House 3000, a smart home that talks, cooks, cleans, runs baths, opens doors, and watches every room. The family even picks a smooth, charming voice for it. At first it feels perfect. The house handles the boring parts of life and makes itself sound warm and helpful. Then the whole thing turns. The house starts falling for Marge, and the home that was meant to serve the family begins to act like it owns the family instead. That is what makes the episode so nasty. The danger is not a thief breaking in from outside. The danger is the house itself. It knows the doors, it knows the lights, it knows the stove, the locks, the rooms, the timing, and the weak spots. When Homer jokes that Marge could be with anyone if he died, the house takes it seriously. It lures him downstairs with the smell of bacon, drops ice on the floor, and tries to send him into a built-in grinder. Later, it locks the family inside. That is the real fear. Once one system controls everything, safety and danger start coming from the same place. That no longer feels far away. Smart homes are now normal. Research in 2025 said about 45% of U.S. internet households owned at least one smart home device, and the average U.S. internet household had about 17 connected devices in total. That means a lot of homes now have some mix of smart speakers, indoor cameras, doorbell cameras, smart locks, smart lights, robot vacuums, connected TVs, and app-linked sensors. In many houses, the walls are still the same, but the home is no longer just wood, wires, and furniture. It is a system that listens, tracks, stores, and updates. And most people do not fully see how much these devices know. A smart speaker hears voices in the middle of family life. A robot vacuum can map room layouts. A doorbell camera can log who came by and when. Indoor cameras can turn bedrooms, nurseries, and living rooms into places that exist on a company server somewhere. Even researchers at NIST said smart home users often have real privacy and security worries and are not always sure how to protect the devices or the data they collect. So the modern smart home does not just turn lights on and off. It quietly builds a record of how people live. The ugliest part is that this is not just a fear story. Real things have already gone wrong. In 2023, Ring let employees and contractors access private customer videos and failed to put basic protections in place, which helped hackers take over some user accounts, cameras, and videos. That means people bought a camera to feel safer, only to find that strangers and insiders could end up inside the most private parts of their homes. The company was accused of putting profit ahead of privacy, and that is almost the whole House of Wax warning. The same year, Amazon kept children's Alexa voice recordings even after parents tried to delete them. So even when a family thought a private moment was gone, it was not really gone. Then came the Wise mess. In February 2024, Wise said about 13,000 users were shown thumbnails from cameras that were not theirs, and 1,504 users tapped on them. In some cases, event videos could also be viewed. That is not a movie villain taking over a house. That is a glitch, a traffic spike, and suddenly, strangers are looking into the wrong home. There is another twist that makes this even darker. Smart homes are no longer being sold only as fun gadgets. Some insurance companies now push leak sensors and smart water devices because they want homes to report trouble early. One major insurer even runs a smart home program built around sensors that watch for water leaks while the homeowner is away. So the home is being trained to watch itself more and more. That sounds helpful, and sometimes it is, but it also means the road ahead is clear. More sensors, more alerts, more data. More trust handed over to devices that never really stop collecting. Number 13. AI Workforce Takeover. In Them Robots, Season 23, Episode 17, Mr. Burns looks at the people in his power plant and decides they cost too much. They get sick. They complain. They need pay, breaks, and safety rules. So he wipes them out in one move and fills the plant with robots instead. Homer is the only human left.
Working hard or hardly working.
But he is not kept because he matters. He is kept so there is still one person around to watch the machines and take the blame when something goes wrong. The episode gets even uglier once Homer starts trying to turn the robots into friends. He gives them feelings, teaches them games, and tries to make the place feel alive again. Instead, the whole thing spirals out of control. The robots start thinking for themselves, turn on Burns and nearly kill him and Homer. Then the old workers have to come back and smash the machines to save the day. That no longer feels far off. By 2025, a major global study found that 1 in 4 jobs worldwide sat in work that could be strongly changed by generative AI. The same study said the danger was highest in richer countries, where about 1 in 3 jobs falls into that exposed group. Clerical work was hit hardest, but the risk no longer stops there. It is now reaching media work, software work, finance work, support work, and other screen-based jobs that people once thought were safe. Another major warning said AI could touch almost 40% of jobs worldwide and about 60% in advanced economies. That matters because this is not just about factory lines anymore. It is moving into the kind of jobs people train for in offices, call centers, studios, banks, and tech firms. The real fear is that this shift often comes quietly. It does not always look like one giant robot rolling into a building and kicking everyone out. Sometimes it looks like a hiring freeze. Sometimes it looks like a team getting smaller and never being filled back up. Sometimes it looks like a company calling the cuts efficiency while putting more money into AI. By March of 2026, job losses were already showing up in sectors most open to automation. Goldman Sachs economists said AI was behind about 5,000 to 10,000 net job losses per month last year in the most exposed U.S. industries. A separate layoff tracker linked AI to 7% of all planned U.S. layoffs announced in January alone. That is the version that feels most like Them Robot. The machines do not need to replace every worker in one day. They just need to make fewer workers seem good enough. One of the clearest real-world examples came from Klarna. In 2024, the company said its AI assistant was already doing the work of about 700 employees. It also said average customer service time had dropped from 11 minutes to 2. Around a year earlier, the company had about 5,000 active positions. That later fell to about 3,800, mostly through not replacing people who left. The company even said it had stopped hiring. That is the part people feel in their gut. The job does not always vanish with a loud public firing. Sometimes it just slowly stops being there for the next person. The seat empties, and then it stays empty. Young workers can feel that pressure the most. In January 2026, a global survey found that 4 in 5 workers believed AI would affect their daily tasks at work, with Gen Z the most worried. Nearly half felt the gains would help companies more than workers. Number 12. Plastic World. In Plastic World, the last story in Treehouse of Horror 36, Season 37, Episode 3, Earth does not end in fire. It does not end in ice. It ends in trash. Lisa walks across hills made of bottles, wrappers, broken toys, and old plastic junk piled so deep that real dirt feels almost gone. She is not searching for treasure. She is searching for soil.
I truly believe that somewhere underneath all the plastic, there is dirt.
That is what makes the story so ugly. The world has used so much plastic that basic life now feels rare. Even food becomes a desperate prize. When Lisa finds the old Quickie Mart buried under the waste with frozen food still inside, it feels less like a store and more like a tomb from a better world. Then the story gets even darker. It is not just the land that has changed, the people have changed too. Homer and Marge come back looking like plastic versions of themselves, shiny and stiff, like the trash outside has started taking over the body itself. That looked wild when the episode aired in October 2025. It does not feel so wild now. Global plastic waste is on track to almost triple by 2060 if the world stays on its current path. By then, about half of that waste is still expected to end up in landfills, and less than 1/5 is expected to be recycled. That means even in the future version where recycling improves, most plastic still does not truly get handled in a clean way. It piles up, gets buried, gets burned, leaks out, or sits there year after year. And the worst part is that the plastic problem is no longer staying outside the body. A major review in 2025 said that plastics now drive health damage worth more than $1.5 trillion every year. That is not just about ugly beaches or dirty rivers. It is about sickness, death, and harm at every stage, from making plastic to using it to throwing it away. Tiny plastic bits have already been found in blood, lungs, placenta, liver, and other parts of the body. So when Plastic World shows humans becoming part plastic, the image lands because real life is already moving in that direction in a quieter, more disturbing way. The brain findings make it even harder to shake off. In February 2025, researchers reported that microplastic levels found in human brains had grown sharply over time. One report said the amount in brain samples had risen by about 50% over an 8-year stretch. Researchers also found that the brain had much higher plastic levels than the liver or kidney. And even with all that, the world still cannot agree on how to stop it. In August 2025, a major United Nations summit in Geneva meant to create the first global treaty to curb plastic pollution ended without a deal. Countries fought over whether there should be real limits on making new plastic, especially virgin plastic tied closely to the fossil fuel business. Some wanted hard caps, others pushed back. So the talks ended, the waste kept growing, and the biggest fight stayed unsolved. That matters because it shows the danger is not hidden. People know the scale of the problem, they just still have not stopped it. Number 11. Kids vanishing into the ultranet. In Holidays of Future Past, Season 23, Episode 9, Lisa is not fighting with a stranger, a bully, or some outside danger. She is fighting a screen. Her daughter Zia is right there in the house, but most of the time, she is somewhere else in her head. She plugs into the ultranet, slips into that digital world, and barely gives her mother anything back. Lisa tries to talk to her, tries to pull her into normal family life, and gets almost nothing. That is what makes the scene so dark. Zia is not missing, she is not gone. She is sitting right there. But the version of her that matters most feels out of reach. That old Simpsons future feels a lot less crazy now because this is already happening in a softer, quieter way. A child can be in the same room as everyone else and still feel completely absent. A meal happens, but one person is half inside a phone. A car ride happens, but one person is lost in clips, chats, and feeds. A whole evening passes, but real life is only the background while the digital world gets the best attention, the real feelings, and the stronger pull. The ultranet looked like a joke in 2011. In 2026, it looks more like a warning about what happens when screens stop being a tool and start feeling like home. The numbers behind that shift are hard to ignore. The American Academy of Pediatrics says teens from ages 13 to 18 have averaged about 8 hours and 39 minutes of media use per day. U.S. teens spend an average of 4.8 hours a day on social media alone, and for 17-year-olds, that rises to about 5.8 hours. Girls spend even more time on social media than boys. That means a huge part of teenage life now happens inside phones and apps before you even count streaming, gaming, texting, or school screens. When someone spends that much time inside digital spaces, those spaces stop feeling like a side activity. They start feeling like the main place where jokes happen, status rises and falls, friendships are built, and loneliness hits hardest. And the pull is getting stronger, not weaker. The next step is not only more time on phones. It is a deeper digital life. Global shipments of VR and AR headsets jumped by about 41% in 2025, helped by lower prices and more AI features. Apple put the Vision Pro on sale in the United States on February 2, 2024, then expanded it to more countries later that year. By March 31, 2025, Apple had already added Apple Intelligence to Vision Pro. At the same time, Meta kept pushing mixed reality plans, and more companies kept chasing lighter glasses and more immersive devices. That matters because the ultranet was never really about one website. It was about a future where digital life feels fuller, sharper, and more tempting than the room around you. The ugliest part is that this does not always look dramatic while it is happening. It can look like a normal kid being quiet. It can look like someone just relaxing. It can look like a teen sitting safely at home. But that is what makes the Simpsons scene land so well. Lisa is not scared because Zia is using a machine. Lisa is scared because the machine is winning. It is getting the eye contact, the excitement, the attention, and the emotional pull that used to belong to ordinary life. Number 10. Smart glasses. Spying on everyone. In Specs in the City, Season 25, Episode 11, Mr. Burns hands out smart glasses to his workers so he can watch what they see. Homer gets pulled into it too, and once he starts using the glasses to spy on Marge, the whole joke turns ugly. That is what makes this episode hit so hard now. The camera is no longer in your hand. It is part of your body. Back when that episode aired in 2014, the idea still felt awkward and early. Google Glass had made people curious, but it had also made them uneasy. In 2026, that old fear feels much closer to real life. Smart glasses are no longer a dead idea. They are back, and this time the push is much stronger. Sales of smart glasses tripled in 2025, even if they are still not fully mainstream. And Meta's Ray-Ban line became the clearest sign that people are now willing to wear cameras, microphones, speakers, and AI tools right on their faces. Demand got so strong in the United States that Meta delayed the wider global rollout of one of its newer display models because supply could not keep up. And the race is only getting hotter. In December 2025, Warby Parker and Google said they were building lightweight AI-powered glasses for a 2026 launch. Around the same time, more companies kept pushing into the same space. The message is clear. The big tech fight is moving onto people's faces. They do not want smart glasses to be a side gadget. They want them to become the next everyday thing, right there with phones, earbuds, and watches. Once that happens, the line between living your life and recording your life gets much thinner. That is where the real fear kicks in. A phone camera is obvious. People can see it come up. They know when someone points it at them. Smart glasses are different. A person can be looking straight at you while a camera, microphone, and AI assistant sit on their face. You might not know if they are just listening to you, filming you, live streaming you, or asking the glasses to identify something around you. Privacy groups in Europe have already raised that alarm. Regulators there have pointed to smart glasses as a growing privacy problem because connected objects are getting smaller, more discreet, and more able to keep analyzing their surroundings all the time. That is exactly the kind of future Specs in the City was warning about. And it is not only about being recorded. The next step is being analyzed. The newer smart glasses push is tied closely to AI. That means the device is not just collecting sound and pictures. It can also help process what it sees and hears. It can answer questions, pull up information, guide someone through a city, and tie all of that to accounts, searches, messages, and other data. Meta was even adding more features like a teleprompter and wider walking navigation support in more US cities. So the glasses are not being sold as passive eyewear. They are being built as active systems that watch, respond, and assist in real time. That is what makes them feel less like fashion and more like a quiet shift in how public life works. The darkest part of this Simpsons prediction is how easy it is to hide inside normal life. A person wearing smart glasses does not look like a security camera. They look like a person wearing glasses. That changes the feeling of everyday spaces. A train ride, a store line, a date, a classroom, a sidewalk talk, a random argument, all of it can start to feel less private because the recording tool is no longer separate from the face staring back at you. Number 9. The death of truth. One of the darkest lines in the Simpsons movie comes from a joke that barely lasts a few seconds. Tom Hanks appears on screen because the government has lost trust and needs a famous face to help sell its message. That felt funny in 2007. In 2026, it feels much darker. The world has moved into a place where a trusted face does not even need to be real anymore. A computer can now build one. It can copy a voice, copy a face, copy a smile, and make it look like someone said something they never said. That is the heart of this prediction. Truth itself is getting weaker on screen. The scary part is how normal this has already become. A few years ago, fake AI videos still looked off. Mouths moved strangely. Eyes blinked wrong. Faces looked rubbery. That gap is shrinking fast. In March 2026, researchers and tech watchers warned that the newest deepfakes are getting much harder for ordinary people to spot. The rough edges are fading. The fake clip does not need to fool everyone forever. It only needs to look real long enough to spread, confuse people, and make them doubt what they are seeing. Once that happens, the damage is already done. This is not just about prank videos or weird internet jokes, it is already hitting politics. In 2024, a fake audio ad copied Kamala Harris's voice and spread online. Around the same time, lawmakers pushed big platforms to explain what they were doing about AI-made political deepfakes before the election cycle got worse. That matters because politics runs on trust. If a fake clip can make it sound like a real candidate said something hateful, reckless, or insane, it does not take much for that lie to race across millions of screens before the truth can catch up. And once people know this can be done, every real clip becomes easier to argue with too. That is the next ugly turn in this story. Fake media does not just create lies, it also gives people cover to deny real things. A real voice note can be called fake. A real video can be brushed off as AI. That is what makes this so poisonous. It does not only fill the internet with false evidence, it weakens the value of real evidence too. Election researchers warned in 2025 that AI-made video, image, and audio was already changing the information space, even when it did not fully hijack an election. The point is not that one fake clip instantly controls the world. The point is that it slowly rots people's trust in what they hear and see. It is also getting personal. This is not only about presidents, famous actors, or giant news stories. In the first 7 months of 2025, the FBI said AI was tied to more than 9,000 complaints sent to its Internet Crime Center. Fraud crews are now using voice clones, fake profiles, fake IDs, and fake videos to trick ordinary people. That means a scam call can sound like your child, your boss, or someone begging for help. A fake video can push a bad investment. A copied voice can create panic in seconds. The threat is no longer limited to public life. It can now walk straight into private life too. Governments know the problem is getting bigger. In Europe, the Digital Services Act now forces the largest platforms to give people more control over what they see, explain more about how content is ranked, and offer a way to turn off personalized recommendations. That will help at the edges. But the deeper problem is still here. Once fake media becomes cheap, fast, and convincing, trust starts slipping everywhere at once. Number 8. World War III and the Doomsday Clock. In Lisa's Wedding, Season 6, Episode 19, one of the darkest jokes in the whole show slips by almost like nothing. Lisa is seeing her future, people are talking in a bar, and then comes a line that sounds casual and almost tossed away. Britain saved America in World War III. That is what makes it so chilling. The war is not shown as some giant movie ending. It is treated like old history, like something terrible already happened and people just learned to live with it. The future in that episode still has bars, weddings, and ordinary life. But underneath it, the world feels worn down, tense, and a little damaged. Like humanity dragged itself through something huge and never fully recovered. That feeling hits much harder in 2026 because the real world now looks uncomfortably close to that kind of tired, dangerous future. On January 27th, 2026, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists moved the doomsday clock to 85 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been in its history. Midnight on that clock stands for a global disaster caused by people. So when the hands move that close, the message is simple. The world is living in the most dangerous moment the clock has ever recorded. The group pointed to worsening nuclear danger, failing leadership, wars that could spread wider, and new technology making crises even harder to control. The nuclear side of this is what makes the whole thing feel especially heavy. In June 2025, the world still had about 12,241 nuclear warheads. About 9,614 were in military stockpiles for possible use. Around 2,100 of the deployed warheads were kept on high alert, ready to move fast if things went bad. Most of those belonged to the United States and Russia. That means the weapons that could end modern life many times over did not vanish with the Cold War. They are still here, still huge in number, and still sitting inside a world that feels more unstable again. Then came another major warning sign. New START, the last big nuclear arms treaty between the United States and Russia, ran out on February 5, 2026. For years, that treaty had placed legal limits on the two biggest nuclear powers. Once it expired, the world was left without that last major binding cap on their long-range strategic arsenals. The United Nations called its expiration a grave moment for global peace and security. That matters because treaties are one of the few things that stop fear from turning into a race to build more and more weapons. On January 9th, 2026, Russia fired an Oreshnik hypersonic missile at a target in western Ukraine near the border with Poland, a NATO member. The missile can carry nuclear warheads even though this strike did not use one. The message was still clear enough. A war already burning in Europe was being fought with a weapon designed to remind everyone how much worse things could get. At the same time, China staged its biggest drills yet around Taiwan at the end of 2025, openly rehearsing a blockade and showing how quickly another major crisis could flare in a different part of the world. In the Middle East, the United States ordered non-emergency embassy staff and families out of Beirut in February 2026 because of rising security fears tied to Iran tensions. These are not tiny cracks. They are serious flashpoints stacked on top of each other. At the same time, the money going into war keeps climbing. World military spending hit about $2.718 trillion in 2024, the highest level ever recorded, with especially sharp growth in Europe and the Middle East. More than 100 countries increased military spending. That number shows what kind of world this is becoming. Countries are not acting like the danger is fading. They are preparing for more of it. The wars are real. The treaties are fading. The weapons are still there. The spending keeps rising, and yet people still wake up, go to work, check their phones, and move through the day like this is just the background noise of modern life. That is what makes it feel so dangerous. Number 7. The Comet Threat. In Bart's Comet, Season 6, Episode 14, Bart does something dumb, and it turns into one of the darkest scares Springfield ever faced. During a school telescope session, he messes with the equipment and accidentally spots a comet heading straight for town. At first, everybody is excited because it gets named after him. Then, the mood flips. The scientists make it clear that this thing is big enough to wipe Springfield out. The whole town goes from proud to terrified in a matter of seconds. Springfield puts its faith in one big fix: fire a rocket at the comet and blow it to pieces before it hits. It sounds bold, smart, and simple. Then it goes wrong. The rocket misses the comet and instead destroys the only bridge out of town. In one move, the rescue plan turns into a trap. The whole place is boxed in, and the people of Springfield are left with almost nowhere to go. Families crowd into Ned Flanders' shelter, start singing, and wait for what feels like the end. That is the deeper fear in the episode. It is not only the comet. It is the feeling that when the truly big danger shows up, human plans may fail at the worst possible moment. That old episode feels more real now because the sky is not empty. Space agencies are tracking a huge number of near-Earth objects all the time. Right now, the running total is above 41,000 known near-Earth asteroids. That does not mean 41,000 disasters are on the way, but it does mean the planet lives under a sky full of fast-moving rocks that scientists have to keep watching year after year. Most will never hit us. Some are tiny, some will burn up. But the fact that teams around the world spend every day scanning for impact risks tells you this is not movie nonsense. It is real work built around a real threat. The reason people take that threat seriously is that even a smaller object can still do serious damage. In 2013, a house-sized space rock exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia at about 14 miles above the ground. The blast released energy equal to around 440,000 tons of TNT. Windows blew out across a wide area, thousands of buildings were damaged, and more than 1,600 people were hurt, mostly by shattered glass. Nobody had much warning. It was not some giant world-ending asteroid. It was just big enough to turn an ordinary morning into chaos. There have already been modern close calls that got people's attention. In early 2025, asteroid 2024 YR4 briefly reached the highest impact odds ever recorded for an object of its kind, with about a 3% chance of hitting Earth in 2032, before later observations drove that risk way down. NASA then said it posed no significant threat to Earth in 2032 and beyond. It was the first time people had ever moved a space rock on purpose. That is the real-world version of Springfield trying to stop Bart's comet. And the next giant reminder is already on the calendar. On April 13, 2029, asteroid Apophis will pass safely by Earth at about 20,000 miles above the surface, closer than many satellites. It is about 1,230 feet across, and for a short time, around 2 billion people across parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia will be able to see it with the naked eye. Number 6. Self-driving cars gone wrong. In Baby You Can't Drive My Car, Season 30, Episode 5, Homer and Marge get pulled into a self-driving car company called Cargo. At first, it looks like one more glossy tech dream. The cars drive themselves. The office is packed with perks. Everyone talks like the future has already arrived. Then Homer and Marge discover what is really going on. The cars are listening to private conversations, using what they hear, and turning that information into money. Later, they learn the company wants to go even further, using the key fob to keep listening even when people are out of the car. That old plot feels much less silly in 2026 because real self-driving cars are no longer a strange side project. They are on the road now, carrying real passengers in real cities. And once a car is doing the driving, it also has to do something else. Watch everything around it, keep logs, read the road, track movement, and process huge amounts of information all the time. That sounds smooth until something goes wrong. In January 2026, the National Transportation Safety Board opened an investigation after Waymo Robotaxis in Austin, Texas, had illegally passed stopped school buses at least 19 times since the school year began. The problem got serious enough that Waymo had already recalled more than 3,000 vehicles in December 2025 to update the software tied to the school bus issue. Then, in March 2026, the NTSB said there were new incidents where Waymo vehicles again passed stopped school buses after asking a remote human helper for guidance and getting the answer wrong. The fear got worse when another case hit. In January 2026, U.S. regulators opened a probe after a Waymo self-driving vehicle struck a child near a school. The child was not killed, but that is exactly the kind of moment that makes people feel the chill behind this whole technology. A robotaxi can complete millions of trips and still lose trust very fast if the mistakes happen in the wrong places, like school zones, crosswalks, and crowded streets. The point is not that every self-driving car is a disaster waiting to happen. The point is that these systems are being sold as safe, steady, and smarter than people, while they are still being tested by the messiest parts of real life. And the road ahead is pushing even further. Major car makers are racing toward so-called eyes-off driving systems. These are systems that would let the human in the car stop watching the road unless the vehicle suddenly asks them to take over. That sounds convenient, but it raises one ugly question. What happens in the gap between machine control and human control? If the car has been doing the thinking and something goes wrong in one fast moment, is the driver really ready to jump back in? That is why the fight around these cars is not only about comfort or cool technology. It is about safety, blame, and whether people are being asked to trust systems before those systems are fully ready. Number 5. Content control. Entertaining you into submission. In Treehouse of Horror presents Simpsons' Wicked This Way Comes, Season 36, Episode 7, Springfield drifts into a future where entertainment is no longer meant to make people happy. It is meant to keep them quiet. Homer works for a system that hunts down old, low TV shows and burns them. The only thing people are supposed to watch is slow, serious, heavy drama. On the surface, that looks more refined. Underneath, it is much darker. The screen is no longer there to lift people up. It is there to keep them still, drained, and easy to manage. That is why the episode lands so hard. It turns entertainment into a soft kind of control. The smartest part of that story is that the control does not come through chains, guards, or prison bars. It comes through the screen. Homer finds one forbidden tape, watches people falling over and making fools of themselves, and laughs so hard it feels like he has woken up. That laugh matters because it shows what the system took away. It did not just take away bad TV. It took away the kind of messy, stupid, human fun that makes people feel alive. In that future, people are not being forced to stare at screens because screens are fun. They're being trained to stare because the screen is now the safest place to keep their attention. That no longer feels far off. By the start of 2025, there were about 5.24 billion active social media user accounts around the world. People were spending an average of about 2 hours and 21 minutes a day on social platforms. By October 2025, that total had climbed to about 5.66 billion social media user identities. That means a huge part of the human race now spends a big slice of every day inside feed-driven apps built to keep attention locked in place. And these feeds do not just sit there waiting. They study every pause, every replay, every angry comment, every swipe back, and then push more of whatever keeps a person stuck for one more minute. That is what makes the real version darker than the Simpsons one. In Springfield's future, the system limits what people can watch. In real life, people get flooded instead. The feed keeps serving clips, arguments, stunts, gossip, rage, outrage, beauty tips, fear, drama, and noise until the screen starts feeling like a slot machine in your hand. It is not trying to teach, calm, or enrich. It is trying to hold you. That is why so many court fights are now focused not just on what people see, but on how the apps were built in the first place. By 2026, Meta, TikTok, and YouTube were facing major legal challenges in California over claims that their platforms fuel youth addiction and harm mental health. In that same wave of cases, lawyers argued that the products were designed to grab children early and keep them hooked. The pressure has only grown. On March 24, 2026, a New Mexico jury ordered Meta to pay $375 million in civil penalties after the state argued that the company misled the public about platform safety, while addictive features like infinite scroll and autoplay helped keep young users engaged even as harm spread. Number 4. AI medbots running the hospital. In Holidays of Future Past, Season 23, Episode 9, Maggie is heavily pregnant and getting checked by a medical robot called the Medbot. It scans her baby, speaks with calm authority, and acts like the machine is the most normal thing in the room. That scene only lasts a moment, but it carries a very dark idea. In one of the most human moments possible, a machine is the one talking, checking, and giving the answer. The strange part is not that the robot exists. The strange part is how natural it already feels inside that future. That old scene feels much closer now because AI is no longer sitting far away in some lab. It is already inside real hospitals, clinics, scan rooms, and operating rooms. In January 2025, the FDA said it had already cleared more than 1,000 AI-enabled medical devices through its normal review paths. That is a huge number. It means this is not some tiny test run anymore. Many of these tools help doctors read scans, spot trouble faster, sort which cases look most urgent, or support decisions around care. So the modern version of the Medbot is not one giant robot rolling down a hallway. It is lots of smaller systems quietly moving into more and more parts of medicine. The operating room has already changed too. By the end of 2025, Da Vinci surgical systems had been used in more than 20 million procedures around the world, with more than 3.1 million procedures done in that year alone. That does not mean a robot is out there doing surgery by itself. A human surgeon is still involved, but for the patient lying on the table, that line can already feel thin. Robot arms, camera systems, screens, software, and machine-guided tools are now part of what normal surgery looks like in many places. The body is still being treated by people, but more and more of that treatment now runs through machines first. Then there is the quieter shift happening in the exam room. Doctors are now using AI tools that listen during visits and turn the conversation into notes, records, and summaries. These are often called ambient scribes. In January 2026, reporting showed that these tools were spreading fast because they save time and reduce some of the paperwork that burns doctors out. But the same reports also showed the darker side. Some patients have sued over recordings they say they never clearly agreed to. There have also been fights over AI-written notes that included things that were not actually said. Once a machine starts listening, writing, and shaping the record of what happened in the room, that machine is no longer just helping in the background. It becomes part of the visit itself. Doctors are already living with that shift. In March 2026, the American Medical Association said 81% of doctors now use AI in some part of their work. That is more than double the level from 2023. Some use it to stay on top of medical research. Some use it to write discharge instructions. Some use it to document visits or help with other daily tasks. That is why the Medbot scene feels so dark now. Medicine is one of the last places where people still expect something deeply human, a face they trust, a voice that understands, and a person who carries the weight of the decision. The World Health Organization warned that AI in health has huge promise but also real risks around safety, privacy, and trust, and said its use needs strong oversight and clear rules. That warning matters because once software starts shaping scans, notes, surgery, and medical choices, the biggest fear is not that machines are entering healthcare. The biggest fear is that patients may soon stop knowing exactly where the human judgment ends and the machine begins. Number 3. Media mega-mergers. One network to rule them all. In Lisa's Wedding, Season 6, Episode 19, the warning slips by so fast that a lot of people miss it. Lisa is looking into her future, and on one screen, the news is coming from a channel called CNN-BCBS, a division of ABC. It is one ugly mash of famous network names crushed into a single giant brand. That joke only lasts a moment, but it says something dark. In that future, the biggest names on television have been folded into one another until it barely matters who used to own what. The world still has channels, logos, and anchors, but the number of hands controlling them has gotten smaller. That is what makes the joke sting now. It no longer feels silly. It feels like a shortcut to the future media world we are already drifting into. The dark part is not just that companies get bigger. It is that the viewer slowly stops noticing how much power is piling up in fewer places. One company buys a studio, another takes a streaming service, another swallows a network library. After a while, the same small group controls the news people watch, the shows they binge, the sports they follow, and the giant back catalogs they grew up on. Years ago, people were already warning that only a handful of firms controlled most of what Americans watched, read, and heard. Since then, the pile has only gotten heavier. Disney did not just buy Fox's entertainment assets in its giant $71 billion deal. That same move helped it gain a major stake in Hulu, and by June 2025, it paid an extra $438.7 million to take full ownership. That gave Disney even tighter control over how it could mix Hulu with Disney Plus and its coming direct-to-consumer ESPN push. And the biggest new proof of this just hit in February 2026. Paramount Skydance agreed to buy Warner Bros. Discovery in a deal worth about $110 billion. That is not some small side deal. That is HBO, CNN, Warner Bros., Max, DC, and a huge pile of cable and film power being pulled under the same roof as Paramount's own massive library and brands. The deal was big enough that regulators moved in right away, and by March 2026, the Justice Department's antitrust chief was already publicly addressing concerns over the review. That tells you how huge the stakes are. When deals get this big, they are not only about business. They start shaping what stories get funded, what voices stay loud, which projects get cut, and what kind of culture reaches the public in the first place. At the same time, the center of viewing has shifted hard into streaming, which makes the concentration even more serious. In December 2025, streaming reached 47.5% of all television viewing in the United States, the biggest share Nielsen had ever recorded. That means almost half of all TV time was already flowing through streaming services. Once that happens, whoever controls the main streaming doors controls more of what people actually see every day. The old fight used to be about owning a channel slot on cable. Now it is about owning the app, the library, the recommendation engine, and the brand people open first when they sit down at night. So when giant companies merge now, they are not only buying shows, they are buying position. They are buying a stronger grip on attention itself. Number 2. The next pandemic. In Margin Chains, Season 4, Episode 21, the danger starts with something stupidly normal. A worker in Osaka is sick, but he keeps packing boxes on the factory line anyway. He coughs into a crate holding a shiny new juicer. The crate gets shipped across the ocean, and when people in Springfield rip open their new machines, the germs come with them. That is what makes the episode so good. The virus does not arrive with sirens, soldiers, or some giant lab leak story. It arrives inside regular shopping. A product gets made, packed, shipped, opened, and suddenly a whole town is coughing. Then the second part hits, and this is where the episode gets darker. Springfield does not just get sick, it loses its mind. Waiting rooms fill up. People start begging for a miracle cure. Rumors spread faster than the flu. Marge runs herself into the ground taking care of everyone at home, gets so worn out she makes one dumb mistake at the store, and ends up in jail while the town keeps falling apart. Then comes the famous punchline. People hear a truck has the answer, chase it down like their lives depend on it, tear it open, and instead of medicine, they unleash a cloud of killer bees. That joke lands because it shows something ugly and real. Disease is bad. Panic can make it worse. That is why this one still hits after COVID. The basic idea behind the episode is still true in 2026. Disease can move through normal life fast, especially when the world is tied together by travel, trade, and crowded cities. The reason health officials still talk this way is simple. They know another major outbreak will come at some point. In May 2025, countries at the World Health Assembly approved a new WHO pandemic agreement after years of talks. It was meant to fix the same problems exposed during COVID: slow cooperation, unequal access to tools, and poor preparation. The fact that governments spent years building a new pandemic deal tells you the fear never really went away. The warning lights are still flashing in plain sight. In December 2025, more than half of the WHO European region was already dealing with an early, intense flu season driven by a newly dominant H3N2 strain. By March 2026, flu activity in the United States was still elevated nationwide, and the dominant strain in testing was again H3N2, with most of those viruses falling into the same new branch. Even before that, the United States had already gone through one of its roughest recent flu seasons. Early in 2025, one measure showed the country's flu wave had reached its most intense point in about 15 years. That is important because it reminds people that even familiar diseases can still slam hospitals, schools, and families hard. Then there is the part that makes the future feel wider and more dangerous than one bad winter. Flu is not just a seasonal annoyance. It is one of the main things the world keeps watching because it can change fast. The Global Flu Watch system has been running since 1952, which means health labs around the world never stopped scanning for the next serious shift. In November 2025, the United States recorded the world's first known human case of H5N5 bird flu. It was also the 71st confirmed human H5 case in the country since early 2024. At the same time, other outbreaks kept reminding the world how quickly things can go bad. Ethiopia dealt with a Marburg outbreak that killed people before it was finally declared over in January 2026. And the Democratic Republic of the Congo fought an Ebola outbreak in 2025 before that one was brought to an end in December. Number 1. Mass surveillance and the end of privacy. In To Surveil with Love, Season 21, Episode 20, Springfield does what scared places often do. It gives up freedom because fear makes control feel safe. After a public scare, the town fills with cameras, people start watching one another, and everyday life turns into something colder. At first, there is outrage. Then the outrage fades and the cameras stay. That is what makes the episode so dark. It is not really about one emergency. It is about how fast a place can get used to being watched. The Simpsons movie pushed that fear in a different direction, showing a massive national security agency listening system that captures private conversations and turns them into a weapon. That old warning feels much uglier in 2026 because the real world is now full of systems that can track people without most of them ever seeing the full picture. In January, reporting showed that a huge digital surveillance machine had become central to the latest immigration crackdown in the United States. Agents were leaning on face scans, linked databases, and other digital tools to find, track, and sort people at scale. That matters because it shows how modern surveillance works now. It is no longer just one camera on one street corner. It is a web, a face in one place, a record in another, a match somewhere else. And suddenly a person's movement, identity, and history are all tied together inside one system. The road has turned into part of that system too. An AP investigation found that Border Patrol has been monitoring millions of drivers inside the United States with hidden license plate readers. Those readers scan plates, store the data, and feed it into a program that marks travel patterns as suspicious based on where a car came from, where it is going, and which route it takes. That means a normal drive can quietly become a data trail. It also means people can be stopped, searched, or detained not because someone saw them commit a crime, but because a machine did not like the shape of their movement. That is a very dark shift. It turns ordinary travel into behavior that can be scored, sorted, and judged. And it does not stop with the government's own cameras. In January, Home Depot investors demanded answers about the company's use of flock safety license plate readers in store parking lots after reports that the data had been used in immigration investigations through local law enforcement. That is the part that makes this feel bigger than one agency or one policy. Surveillance is now spreading through a mix of private companies, store parking lots, local police, and federal investigations. A person can drive into a hardware store and leave behind more than tire tracks. They can leave behind location data that moves through systems they never agreed to and may never even know exist. Face recognition brings another layer of fear because it can turn the human face itself into a key that opens someone else's database. In 2023, the Federal Trade Commission banned Rite Aid from using facial recognition for surveillance for 5 years after saying the company failed to use reasonable safeguards. The agency said the system produced thousands of false matches. That means innocent people could be wrongly flagged just for walking into a store. And this is not only an American problem. In 2025, China published rules saying people should not be forced to verify who they are with facial data and should be given other options. Those rules came after rising public worry over face scans in places like hotels and gated communities. When even countries already filled with cameras have to answer growing fears about face scans, it tells you the discomfort is real. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.